Hey there, friends and enemies, Choppy here again, and now that all the cards have been revealed for the upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Magic the Gathering set, I want to go over the 5 mythic cards that I most want to add to my collection. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the strongest, they're just the ones that I like the best and can fit into certain decks that I have or am looking to build. So keep that in mind. If you're not a fan of the set, if you're not a fan of Universes Beyond, that's fine, but try to keep the negativity to a minimum. I do understand why people might not enjoy this set, but for me personally, there's a little bit of nostalgia there. And if you're going to pick up cards, you should pick up singles rather than buying packs if you're not interested in supporting the set at all. That's just something to keep in mind. Anyway, starting off, we have Broadcast Takeover. This is really good for Commander. It is very expensive, but you definitely want to keep in mind a certain thing with this card. It costs 2 colorless and 3 red, and says for a sorcery that says gain control of all artifacts your opponents control until end of turn. Untap them. They gain haste until end of turn. Now, why this is very interesting. Not only does it untap them, but it applies to all of your opponents. So if you're playing Commander, this will give you every single artifact on the board. If one of your opponents is playing an artifact deck, this could be a massive swing. But even without that, this could provide you with a lot of interesting options that could really boost your table at that particular time, your board state. So I do think this is one of those cards that is going to be situational. It is, again, very expensive at 5 mana, but could really shift things. Probably not going to be the best in higher level Magic games, but if you're playing more casual Commander, this could be something that could be incredibly fun. And as you probably are not going to run a ton of artifacts in a red deck outside of equipment, this could also provide some interesting interactions as well with this type of deck. Now, again, the major drawback is going to be that it does cost 3 red mana. So if you're running a 3 color deck, it might be very difficult to cast this. So that's why it's going to be kind of one of the lowest of the mythics. But I do think it is interesting. And the fact that you get artifacts from all of your opponents is pretty nice. Next up, we have Krang. I like the blue Krang. That's a rare card, but this one looks pretty interesting as well. Krang Utrom Warlord. So for 9 colorless, this is a legendary artifact creature. Utrom Robot, that is a 9/9 with flying, trample, indestructible, haste. Other artifact creatures you control have flying, trample, indestructible, and haste as well. And why I like this card personally is I just feel like some of these massive colorless creatures are insane and much easier to cast these days than they've ever been. Not only do you have Soul Ring and stuff like that in order to help you cast it, but there's just so many ways to generate different mana of not only different colors, but especially colorless as well. And if you're running an artifact deck and you have ways to cheat this out, that could be even better. So I do think this is one of those cards that is going to be an absolute game changer if you're able to get it out. And again, very, very expensive, probably not usable in every deck, but there are certain situations where I think this is going to be pretty insane. And there are other options that all this competes with, so it's not like this is the only massive creature that's massively expensive that you can cast, but I do think it is a new one that could provide a lot of value depending on what type of deck you're using it in. Up next, we have a card that I'm really excited about. This is actually the Japan Showcase art, so it's going to be very difficult to obtain here in the States, but I do think this is in some decks here over in the US as well. But anyway, this is a colorless and a black for a 1/1 legendary mutant ninja human creature with menace, and whenever another permanent leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Super Shredder. So whenever another permanent leaves the battlefield, this could apply to a lot of different things. And if you're playing black, you're likely going to be sacrificing creatures in a lot of your decks. Like, for example, this might fit really well in my Sephiroth deck. And I just like the way that it can buff itself very, very quickly for only 2 mana and become quite strong with not a lot of effort. Like, you might pull this out in a turn where you're already planning to sacrifice creatures. And don't forget that it's whenever another permanent. So it could be your permanent, it could be opponent's permanent, and it doesn't say it applies once per turn. So if you have a spell that essentially you can cast this and then cast a spell that has every player on the board sacrifice a creature, now all of a sudden this is getting +4/+4 right off the bat for only 2 mana. So again, one of those cards that I think could provide a lot of usage across a lot of different decks, in especially with black, because you're going to be trying to get rid of creatures all the time, whether they're your own or your opponent's, whatever the case might be. This might be the card that I'm most likely to add to one of my decks as they currently stand, whereas the other cards that I'm going to talk about might be more that I would either build around or find creative usages for. So this is one I'm definitely going to add at some point in the near future. Then we have Dark Leo and Shredder. This is one that I could see being a ninja commander. So for a white and a black, for a 1/3 legendary creature, mutant ninja turtle human, it has sneak. So if you didn't know, sneak, essentially you can cast this for its sneak cost. If you return one tapped attacking creature back to your hand, and then attacking ninjas you control have death touch. So that's all ninjas. And then whenever Dark Leo and Shredder deal combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 black ninja creature token. Then if you control 5 or more ninjas, that player loses half their life rounded up. That's actually insane. So you can do so much damage, and you're really going to be using this in a pure ninja deck where you're trying to get as many ninja tokens out as possible. Maybe you'll use a lot of token doublers as well. Something like Taj Ogier, I think, could be very, very good in something like this. So I think there's a lot of possibilities for this to be very effective. And again, this is the type of a card that I would. This is the main card I would use as a brand new commander from this set that I would like to build a deck with. And there's obviously a lot of ninjas with this set. You can go back and get other ninjas from other sets as well. And I just think in general this would be a lot of fun to make work, although it won't be the best commander out there by any stretch. So it just could be a lot of fun. Anyway, up next we have the last but not least Raphael Ninja Destroyer. For 2 colorless and 2 red, you get a 4/4 legendary creature mutant ninja turtle. Raphael must be blocked if able. He also has Enrage. Whenever Raphael is dealt damage, add that much red mana. Until end of turn, you don't lose that mana as steps and phases end. So not the most insane creature. Again, for 4 mana for a 4/4 with him having this Enrage also is not, I think, that expensive. Although there are potentially better options to have a similar, maybe not the same type of effect, but we saw with Avatar there was a lot of like firebending that allows you essentially to generate a lot of red mana. Some of it you would lose, some of it you would keep, but again, this is something that if you're in a Spellslinger deck, if you're in a red deck where you're trying to generate a lot of mana for any number of reasons, this could come in handy quite a bit, especially because it says whenever he's dealt damage, add that much. So it doesn't necessarily have to be him attacking. You could use him to defend quite often as well, but also he must be blocked, so you will be doing damage even if the enemy doesn't have a lot of creatures on the board, if they don't want to defend. So yeah, this is one of those cards that I don't necessarily think I would make it a commander or anything like that, but I do think there are some red decks that I could find a place to fit this in. I don't know which deck necessarily I would put it in at this point. Like, I don't feel like it would fit into like a VV deck or anything of that nature at this point, but there are some other interesting options that I might like to build in the future. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of these 5 cards in the comments down below. Are there any of the mythics that I might have missed or that you will be specifically chasing? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe. Have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.